Fight aging. We hear that everywhere. Resist it, reverse it, delay it. But what if that fight is exactly what makes aging painful? The Buddha didn't teach us to battle the body. He taught us to listen to it. Hunger, change, the slow loosening of what we thought we were, these aren't enemies, they're messengers. Today I want to share a different way of meeting your aging body. Not with resistance, but with something that might surprise you, recognition, like arriving somewhere you always belonged. Before dawn, the air is still cold and clear. In a small kingdom in northern India, a place surrounded by walls, there were beautiful gardens, rich food, and a life without want. As the first light begins to touch the stone paths, a young man stands just inside the city gate. It is the quiet hour before the sun climbs high. Inside the palace walls, people are waking, beginning to prepare the morning meal. Incense rises in slow curls. Birdsong drifts in from somewhere far away. The young man is about to step outside. This was not the first time he had ventured beyond the gate. But what he would see on this particular day, this day would change everything inside him. On the road ahead, an old man moves slowly, bent beneath the weight of years, his hands trembling as they reached for a walking stick that had fallen just beyond his grasp. The young man had seen old people before, but always at a distance, always briefly, always in the way one sees a cloud passing, there and then forgotten. This time, he could not look away. He stood watching as the old man's fingers searched the dusty ground, and something in his chest grew very still, the way a pond grows still just before rain reaches it. Behind him, the smell of morning bread and warm fires drifted through the gate, the life he had always known pressing gently at his back. The young man's name was Siddhartha Gautama. He would later be known as the Buddha. His father, King Suddhodana, wanted his son to inherit the throne, and so he had built a world for the boy, a world of beauty, of abundance, carefully shielded from everything unclean, old age, sickness, death. But one day, Siddhartha rode out beyond the gates with his attendant Channa. At the first gate he saw an old man, his back bent low, his skin mapped with wrinkles, each step slow and labored, as though he were carrying something invisible and very heavy. Siddhartha stopped. "Channa, who is that man?" Channa answered quietly, "That is an old man, my prince. Everyone who lives long enough becomes that. You, me, no one is outside of this." Siddhartha said nothing. The idea that he himself would grow old, it was taking shape in his mind for the very first time. At the second gate he saw a man lying in the road, his face flushed with fever, his breath ragged and sharp. No one nearby, just a body struggling alone. "Channa, a sick man, my prince. The healthy body does not stay that way. Not yours, not mine." Something heavy settled into Siddhartha's chest. "My body feels strong today, but today is only this moment." At the third gate they came upon a procession, people carrying a body on a stretcher, while a family collapsed in grief beside them. The air had gone completely still. "Channa, death, my prince. All life ends. You and I are walking toward the same place as that person." Siddhartha stood there for a long time. Rich food, fine clothes, none of it promises the body will last. Old age, sickness, death, these weren't things happening to other people. They were already living inside him right now, in this very moment. At the fourth gate, he met a wandering monk, simple robes, a small begging bowl, walking slowly and quietly. His face held something unusual, a stillness, as though the fear of aging, the dread of sickness, the shadow of death had somehow dissolved in him. Siddhartha asked, "Are you not afraid of anything?" The monk turned gently and said, "I have released what I was afraid of." The words were short, but they landed somewhere deep. That night, back in the palace, Siddhartha sat before a table of beautiful food. He could not lift his chopsticks. The dishes were lovely, the aromas were rich, but beneath their beauty, he could see the old man's wrinkled face. He could hear the sick man's labored breath. "This body will decay one day, and yet I keep filling it, adorning it, trying to preserve it. What exactly am I searching for?" That night, something inside Siddhartha began to stir, quietly, but unmistakably. The unconscious hunger to keep eating, the deep, nameless craving to keep the body in the state it should be. For the first time, he began to question all of it. He set down his chopsticks and looked at his hands, smooth, uncalloused, never once forced to carry anything heavier than a cup of wine. And somewhere beneath the lamplight and the smell of jasmine, he felt the first cold edge of a question that would not let him sleep. Let's pause here for a moment. What Siddhartha saw beyond those palace gates was old age, sickness, and death. But I don't think the shock he felt was simply a fear of dying. It was something deeper. The sudden realization that the healthy body, the youth, the way things are right now that he had always taken for granted, had been continuing with no real guarantee at all. Every day we put food into our bodies, we sleep when we're tired, we try to remove pain when it comes. Underneath all of that runs a quiet assumption: the body should stay like this. Pain is an error. Youth is something to be maintained. But let me ask you something. It isn't tiring that causes suffering. It's believing the body should never tire. That's what hurts. It isn't getting sick that causes suffering. It's holding a fixed image of how the body should be, and then feeling the gap when it changes. That's what hurts. This is what Buddhism calls the structure of suffering. Pain doesn't come from outside. It comes from carrying a fixed picture inside, a picture of how things ought to be. Fasting brings that structure into plain sight, through the body itself. When you don't eat, the voice rises. This emptiness is wrong. I can't bear not being filled. Fasting isn't simply a health practice that rests the stomach. It's a quiet act of listening to the craving that says, I must keep eating. I must keep the body full. And here's where something shifts. We say my body, but is the body really ours? The body is made of food, made of water, made of air, made of the lives of plants and animals that came from the earth. What we call my body is actually countless conditions gathering in one place, taking the shape of a body, just for now. There is no fixed my body. There are only infinite threads of connection forming this shape, in this moment. The stillness Siddhartha saw on the wandering monk's face, that was the face of someone whose grip on the body had loosened. Not that fear had vanished, but the cause of fear, the fixed image of how the body must be, had slowly begun to dissolve. Fasting is one path toward that loosening. The Buddha himself, after leaving home, undertook severe practices that included fasting, and when he later discovered the middle way, neither extreme deprivation nor indulgence, it was partly because he had lived the experience of fasting from the inside. Fasting is a mirror that shows clearly the relationship between body and mind, and in front of that mirror, the shape of self that you've been carrying begins to emerge. When hunger sharpens and the hours stretch long, you may notice something unexpected, not weakness, but a strange kind of clarity, as though a background noise you had stopped hearing has finally gone quiet. A monk once told me that on the third day of fasting, he stopped thinking about food entirely. And what remained surprised him, not emptiness, but a vivid sense of being simply here, in this breath, in this moment, with nothing borrowed from yesterday or promised to tomorrow. The hunger had not disappeared, but the one who was arguing with the hunger had grown very still. Now let's bring this closer, into our daily lives, today. The first scene, those nights when you eat without really knowing why. You're not hungry. You know you're not. But you can't seem to stop reaching for something. Scrolling your phone, your hand drifts toward a bag of chips. Watching TV, you've opened a drink before you even noticed. Most of the time, it isn't hunger. Something is unsettled. Anxiety, loneliness, a low hum of unease. And food is what we reach for to fill it. From a Buddhist perspective, I can't stop eating usually doesn't come from an empty stomach. It comes from a feeling that something is missing right now. And that feeling of missing something, it isn't because something is actually gone. It's because we carry a belief that we should be feeling full and settled, and when we don't, the gap feels unbearable. Trying pausing before you reach, noticing that urge, and not feeding it just for a moment. In that pause, the hunger that was never really about food comes forward and shows itself. That act of watching, without acting, is the real practice of fasting. The second scene, the days when your body's changes frighten you. As we get older, the body shifts. We tire more easily. We heal more slowly. We can't do what we used to do. Every time you look in the mirror, the fact of aging looks back. The old man Siddhartha saw beyond the palace gate isn't a distant stranger's story. Every morning when we stand in front of the mirror, we are already walking that same road. It isn't the change itself that's painful, it's carrying the fixed picture. I should still look like I did, I shouldn't be aging, and feeling the distance between that picture and what you see. Fasting is also a practice in releasing those fixed expectations of the body, even briefly. When you skip a meal and feel, I'm so hungry and I can't even eat, that voice may not be the body's. It may be the mind's belief that in this situation, I should be able to eat. When you notice that, something quietly shifts between you and your body. The third seam, when someone you love gets sick or dies, when a parent falls ill, when a friend grows old before your eyes, when someone you treasured is gone, we whisper to ourselves, we should have had more time. This wasn't supposed to happen. Inside those words, supposed to, is the attachment to how things should have been. When Siddhartha stood before that body and couldn't move, wasn't something similar happening inside him? The collision between this should not be, and this simply is, and the long time it takes to stand in that space without fleeing. Being willing to stay inside that tension, that itself is the doorway out of suffering. Fasting in its quiet way lets us practice that staying through the body. When the craving for a meal rises and you simply sit with it, you are rehearsing something far harder. The moment grief arrives and there is nowhere to go. A woman once told me that losing her mother felt like standing in a room where every door had disappeared, and she realized only afterward that she had spent years practicing exactly that, sitting in a moment that felt unbearable until it became bearable. The body, it turns out, has always been the first teacher. So here is one small thing I'd like you to try, just today. It isn't skip a meal, it's something even smaller than that. The next time you're about to eat something, pause for 3 breaths first. Stop your hand on the way to the fridge, pick up the snack and then set it down. In that moment, breathe slowly 3 times. During those 3 breaths, simply feel, am I actually hungry right now? You don't need an answer. You don't need to decide, it's okay to eat or I shouldn't eat. Just feel what's there. How does your stomach feel? Your mouth? Your chest? Was the reaching driven by hunger or by something else? This is grounded in what the Buddha taught as right mindfulness, the practice of noticing, clearly and without judgment, what is happening in this very moment. Not just with food, with everything. Pause before acting. Feel what's there. Over time, that habit shifts your center of gravity, from running on autopilot to the one who notices. I won't promise that 3 breaths will change everything, but the act of stopping, just that, can quietly illuminate the fact that you were reaching for something to fill a space that wasn't really empty. When you see that light, what you do next is entirely yours to decide. Fasting isn't something you force with willpower. When awareness deepens, the hand simply, naturally, begins to relax its grip. Just once tonight. Try it just once. A monk I knew used to say he learned more from pausing at a refrigerator door than from years of formal sitting. Not because the refrigerator was sacred, but because the hunger he found there rarely had anything to do with food. That moment of stillness, hand on the handle. When did you last stop before eating and simply feel what was happening inside you? Every day, we put something in our mouths while doing something else. In the middle of all that, did you ever pause and quietly ask, what am I really reaching for right now? There's no rush to answer. Just carry the question with you, gently, as you go. A monk I once knew kept a small stone in his pocket, not for any ritual, but so that each time his hand reached in, he would remember to stop for 1 breath before reaching for anything else. After many years, he said the stone had never changed, but his hunger had. That is perhaps the quietest kind of transformation. Not the kind announced by bells or ceremonies, but the kind that happens in the ordinary gap between wanting and reaching. A woman in our community once told me she had eaten the same breakfast every morning for 30 years, and it was only when she began to pause that she tasted it for the first time. The encounter at the 4 gates was, at its heart, a confrontation with mortality itself. And we explored what happens inside us when we truly face that truth in a previous teaching. You'll find the link in the description below. Thank you for staying with me today. When people hear the word fasting, they often picture something punishing, a willpower test, a health ritual you endure. But I don't think that's what Siddhartha found beyond those palace gates. What he saw was the truth of a body that keeps changing. Aging, getting sick, dying, not things to be afraid of, but things that simply are. When we fast, we take one small step toward that truth. We feel the hunger and notice that we're still here. A quiet sense begins to spread. I can exist without being full. This isn't a promise that fasting will bring enlightenment, but in the stillness of hunger, the voice that says the body must be a certain way grows a little quieter. And when that voice softens, something we've been carrying along with it, something heavy, may, just for a moment, feel lighter. The peace Siddhartha saw in the wandering monk's face wasn't the face of someone who had gained something. I think it was the face of someone whose grip on one fixed idea of how things should be had gently loosened. Your body is held together today by countless threads of connection. You don't have to be afraid of the ways it changes. Maybe it's enough to sit with it, quietly, just a little more. I'm glad we could meet here today. A woman once told me that the hardest part of her fast wasn't the hunger itself, but the moment she realized she had been reaching for food the way she reached for reassurance, automatically, before she even knew she was afraid. That small pause, that half second of noticing, was not a failure. It was, perhaps, the whole point. In the space between the reaching and the letting go, something honest had a chance to breathe. In the space between the reaching and the letting go, something honest had a chance to breathe. She didn't find an answer there, but she found, as she put it, a little more room, and that room, she said, felt strangely like coming home. Whose face came to mind while you were listening today? One story a day. In a week, your words will change. In a month, your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different.